So I saw Chiraq the other day and I wanted to share my opinion and some commentary about the movie. First, I want to talk about the shit that Spike Lee was getting when he released this trailer. A lot of people were talking about the movie and giving their opinions on the movie when they've only seen the trailer. Like, I'm talking about full written articles, full YouTube reviews, all of this just on the trailer alone. And I feel like that's the equivalent of like reading the back cover of a book and then writing a book report. It's like, yeah, you kind of know what it's about, but you ain't read the book. But let me get to the movie. I just want to say that I am kind of split on my opinion on this movie. But let me start with what I did like about this movie. First of all, I love the fact that it was black women and women of color that were like the forefront of the movement. They were like the backbone of the movement. Like, they really were the movement. And that is very realistic of a lot of movements throughout history, even though credit doesn't always want to be given, but whatever. Another thing I liked was the black girl solidarity. Like, yes, you guys already know. There was a scene where the women from one gang confronted the women of another gang to like discuss ways to fix the issues in the community, and they beefed for like 30 seconds, but then they were like, let's get down to business. So, you know, that was like really enjoyable to watch. And of course, one of the main things that I loved about this movie was that the main character was a dark-skinned, thick, natural hair girl. Like, yes, representation. Enough said. Now, something that I didn't like about this movie was how Teyonah Parris's character, Lysistrata or whatever, she was supposed to be someone who was like super gung-ho on stopping the violence in the community. She was the one who started the movement. She was the one that had everyone chanting no pussy, no power. Wait, no peace, no pussy, something like that. You know what I'm talking about. That was all cool and all, but then it came to a point where after her and her like army of women took over a police or military armory, and the government officials or whatever came in and they tried to reason with them or negotiate with them. So they brought in her boyfriend in the movie, who was Chiraq, which was Nick Cannon's character. And they were like, let's have a sex off or a sex battle. So they're gonna have sex and whoever comes first wins. Teyonah Parris wanted peace and, you know, for the violence to stop. And Nick Cannon at that point wanted the gang violence to continue. I'm sorry, their names are just gonna be Nick and Teyonah because whatever. But that was something that like really bothered me, because it's like, even outside of this movie, if you're someone who's like fighting for peace and for justice and equality and all of that stuff, I feel like that's not, like, those aren't things that are negotiable. Like, you can't like gamble on the safety and the lives of the people in the community. In my head, I was like, okay, yeah, in the movie no one won because the gang members ended up turning in their guns, but what if that didn't happen? What if Teyonah Parris would have lost? Would she just have been like, okay, I guess you could keep shooting and killing everyone because I lost, you made me come first? Like where was Spike Lee going with that? Now, something that I didn't like at first, but once I thought it through, I actually really liked, was Nick Cannon. Yes, I know everyone was like, Nick Cannon, like, he's no thug, he's not hard enough, like, why would Spike pick him to choose this role? And I was right there with y'all, but then once I thought about it, I was like, yo, Spike Lee did that on purpose. But for everyone who's still saying that Nick Cannon isn't like hard enough or down enough or savage enough to play this role, is a very accurate depiction of the twisted mentality that continues to dominate our culture today, where we have all these young people trying to imitate and emulate this thug lifestyle and this gangster mentality, and I feel like Spike Lee was using Nick Cannon to poke fun at that exact thing. And the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, why the fuck does Spike Lee pick Nick Cannon for this role? Nick Cannon is hella goofy, he's not hard. But then I realized that Spike Lee did that on purpose to make the gangster mentality and that thug mentality look silly, because realistically, it is silly. Self-inflicted genocide is silly. Killing each other for street cred and to build up a rep is silly. Killing each other because of the street you live on, when white people own every street that you live on anyway, is silly. And come on, Nick's rival in the movie was Wesley Snipes, who easily could have played a like thug life hard dude. I mean, he was Blade, for God's sakes. But no, in the movie, he was this goofy dude with a bedazzled eye patch with this weird like dolphin laugh, like like Spike did this shit on purpose. He knew what he was doing, but he also knew that not everyone is gonna get that. So I just feel like that was a good use of satire in this movie. But speaking of satire, that was one of the things that was very heavily criticized about this movie, or the trailer. First of all, I want to say that there is a huge difference between satire and humor. When I was watching this movie, yeah, there were a couple of funny parts, but I in no way would actually categorize this movie as a comedy. Like, it's definitely a satirical film. But a lot of people were saying that it was inappropriate to use satire or humor in this film when it was about such a dire issue in the Black community, and they felt like it might desensitize people to what's going on. Realistically, what desensitizes people is it repeatedly happening, not someone putting it out on the table, but whatever. That's what the purpose of satire is for. It's for the purpose of using irony and exaggeration to point out the flaws in something. He's not doing it to glorify it or to make it humorous. But I do understand why some people would be upset about it, because if you are someone who's lost a friend or a family member to gun violence, especially in Chicago, when you're watching this movie, you're not going to be thinking about the underlying message. You're gonna be thinking about the homie who was gunned down in the street. And if everyone around you is laughing while you're watching this, yeah, you're gonna be mad. So I completely get that. The use of satire and humor in this movie wasn't even put there for the purpose of making people laugh. It was put there to draw in a certain type of attention to the issue. And if you're more upset about the use of satire than the actual issue that's being presented, then you really are missing the whole purpose of the movie. If you type in Chiraq into YouTube, you see all these negative videos and you see a bunch of documentaries about what's going on out there. So I feel like Spike Lee risked the controversy of making it a satire as opposed to like a serious film or documentary. One, for shock value, and two, to like make his work stand out amongst others, which clearly to some degree it has. Another thing a lot of people were upset about, mostly people from Chicago, was the way that Spike Lee portrayed Chicago. They said it wasn't an accurate depiction of life in Chicago, life on the South Side. But I feel like when I was watching this movie, I didn't really feel like the movie was about Chicago itself. Like, I don't think Spike Lee was really trying to single out Chicago as a city. And this is just my own interpretation of the movie. Like, Spike Lee might see this and be like, Jasmine, shut the fuck up, you don't know what you're talking about. But the things going on in Chicago aren't at all exclusive to just Chicago. Like, inner city violence, violence in Black communities, Black on Black crime, you know, I hate that term, but you guys know what I'm talking about. These are huge problems in every single large city with a high population of Black people. And that's not because Black people are inherently more violent than others. That goes back to like systematic oppression, racism, all of that. We're not even gonna get into that. So just as easily as he picked Chicago, he could have picked St. Louis or Detroit or Oakland or Compton or wherever. Like, he had to film it somewhere. He wasn't gonna film it in fucking space. And Chicago is a very hot spot right now, so I mean, it makes sense that he would pick Chicago. I have been to Chicago. I haven't experienced Chiraq, but I know people who live in Chicago and who are from Chicago, and I don't believe it was an accurate portrayal of Chicago or, you know, life on the South Side in Inglewood or any of that. And with me not being from Chicago, I can't say whether you should or shouldn't be offended by this, obviously. I do think Spike Lee should have probably used a different name than Chiraq as a way to show that this isn't an issue that is exclusive to Chicago. I feel like he should have used a title that was a lot more broad or, you know, more general, because like I said, this is an issue that is almost nationwide. So why would he use something that completely ties down gun violence to Chicago? Like, I feel like that is something that you should be upset about, whether you're from Chicago or not. I read an article that was talking about how this movie was very sexist. It was using women, particularly Black women, as sex objects, and, you know, it was hypersexualizing things. And on the surface, I feel like that's very easy to think, but when you actually watch this movie and we really think about it, it's kind of the exact opposite. I would actually argue that this movie is more about encouraging women to learn about the power they actually hold, both sexually and politically. Women are already used as sexual props and hypersexualized in the media, so how is it that in a movie in which women are taking away their ability to have sex and choosing how they use their sexual prowess, and for a positive message, whether you think it's realistic or not, it's sexist? Women already get the finger pointed at them when they have children by deadbeats and thugs and all this other stuff. So when they try to reverse it and say, I'm not going to have sex or have children by the people who are destroying the neighborhood, it's bad. Like, There was a line in the movie where Angela Bassett says something like, I don't want to keep having babies if they're just going to get gunned down in the street or something like that. So I feel like this movie is more than just about sexuality, but also about motherhood and protecting your own. So there's also that aspect of it. Overall, I would recommend people to see this movie only because I think it opens up the conversation of gun violence in Black communities in a way that hasn't been done before. The sad thing is I don't think it's at all going to attract or be thought-provoking to the people it was meant to target, such as the people shooting and killing each other. But I think it will open up the doors to coming up with some more unorthodox methods to solving this issue. Maybe not a sex strike per se, but I think this should like help people become more creative in finding solutions, because obviously the current solutions aren't even solutions at all. I most likely won't watch this movie again though. Like, it's just not my type of movie. I would probably rate it like, they do by stars, huh? Probably like maybe like 2.5 stars out of 5. That's how they do it, right? Whatever. Yeah, that's my review. Leave your thoughts below if you saw the movie, commentary, this, that, the third, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal.